Hey there, friends. David Paulides, canammissing project. That's Huck, the executive producer of the show. And she said, Dad, don't forget to show them my picture. That's her picture. This is Huck TV, the executive producer of the show. And I thought I'd give you a little update on the National Park movie. Yes, that was a Kickstarter project of ours. And yes, we have been working on it like a mad dog. Yes, a mad dog. And we have made significant progress. When you put a movie together, you have all these different scenes, say 100. And my job is to write out the storyline. We start at A and we end with Z. And then the editor puts those stories together in the best way they know how to have it make sense. And we've gotten to that stage, which is a really good thing. But then the hardest thing is to fill the gaps in with different things, say a recreation of what happened, specialty graphics, etc. So we got a long ways to go. This is some of the worst, toughest territory imaginable. But the good thing is, we've got a real quality product per the people that are doing the editing and behind the scenes work. These people don't pull punches, and if they don't like something, they'll say it, they go back and shoot it again, and they haven't said anything. So, thank you. That's all good. And I told you that in the next couple months, you're going to see some things that are just going to blow your mind. The first thing was, I stated a couple videos ago that we just opened up our new website, missing411.com. That is our new site. The old site's still open if you want to use it. And I had a lot of really nice comments about the new site, so I hope you guys like it. Get a chance to go over there and check it out. It's a little more user-friendly, up to the 21st century, and it was made by some people that have way more knowledge about that kind of stuff than I do, and a lot more insight as to what the public wants versus what I want. So that took us 6 months to do, and a huge project. There was a huge transfer of data, and that takes an enormous amount of time. Yeah. So the second big blockbuster you're going to see in the next week. It might even be out by the time you watch this video. I don't know. But it's huge. I don't use that word lightly. It's way bigger than a website. And you guys know I have multiple interests. And sometimes people approach me to do things. Most of the time people approach me to do things and I turn them down because I don't have the time. Opportunity came up a little over 2 years ago. And some people asked me to do some things for them, and it turned out to be I will say, the biggest project I've ever taken on. From cradle to grave, it's taken 2.5 years. And you're going to hear something about it if you haven't heard it already. It'll be on this website. Another point, this is a huge point. Please check right now and make sure you're subscribed to this channel. I've had nearly several thousand people send me emails saying how mad they are. They're not subscribed. They haven't been subscribed for a long time. They knew they were. YouTube took them off the subscription list. Yeah, they took them off because you're not getting notified when the new videos come up, which has caused a huge drop in viewership. It kills us. It kills us. So if you could make sure you're subscribed, we post a video every other day, guaranteed. I promise. So please check on that. When you comment on a video, look at the #1 comment for that video. It's coming from me. 99% of the time, there will be a comment within the first 3 hours that video's up from me. Please read that. There's a lot of things in those comments that will answer some of the questions in that video. Hey, I thought you did this, this, and this. Well, read the #1 comment and it might be there. So read the #1 comment. I really appreciate you guys commenting. Comments are great. Very insightful. We have a very smart audience out there. So let's get going on this story. Back almost 15 years ago now, when I started to do the work on Missing 411, I started to notice that there were cases involving children that traveled phenomenal distances. At the same time, I was trying to learn as much as I could about search and rescue, and I bought all the search and rescue manuals. As an example, they'll say a 2-year-old will be found 95% of the time in 2 miles or less from the point that they were last seen. And this was garnered from whoever wrote the book, reading search and rescue manuals, reading search and rescue reports and garnering that data and coming up with some conclusions. In my presentations I make, many times I'll put up a graph showing that those numbers are blown right out of the water. By 25 different times I've shown that young people have traveled distances that make no sense at all. So how can you put up numbers and say survivability after so many days is 0% when I showed that there's survivability way past that? Or that no kids will be found after so much distance. That's not true either. Or they say 95% of the time a child will be found this distance or less. But I've got 15 of those cases that blow those numbers out of the water. Now, I know that there's a lot of search and rescue people out there. I think you should pay attention. If you're into the 4th or 5th day of a search and you're still searching in that 95% zone, you might want to start searching way out there. Because there's several cases, dozens of cases, that don't follow that search and rescue manual. And there were no roads around. Nobody could have given these people a ride. And here's one of those cases right now. Young girl named Elaine Long, 5 years old, missing November 4th, 1945 at 9:15 a.m. I'm going to show you where she lived before we even get deep into this. Here's Melbourne, Australia. Here's border town, right on the border with Victoria, and here's Adelaide. It's called border town because it's on the border. That is where this incident we're going to talk about happened. Capiche? So, Elaine lived with her parents, Mr. and Mrs. W. Long, on the outskirts of border town, in another small village. Now, border town is in southern Australia, and it's in far eastern part of the region. It was established, border town, in 1852, and it was a route for gold miners trying to get to the fields in Adelaide. And in 1852, the government told a police officer to go out and establish a town right at that border, which they did. Now, the area that border town is in is famous for white kangaroos. It's kind of cool. And it has 3 different heritage sites. The Clayton Farm Complex, the Border Town Railroad Station, and the Border Town Institute. Primary industry in the area is agricultural, cereal-related crops, and livestock. So 9 a.m. on November 4th, 1945, Elaine ate breakfast at her house. She went outside. A short time later, 9:15, 9:30, the family started looking for her and they couldn't find her. Parents started searching. They couldn't find anything. Word quickly got out to neighbors that there was a young girl missing there. As I have learned by doing this, rural locations really survive by helping each other in times of great need. And this is a great example of that exactly happening. Word got out at a place called Pubinagoreg, Australian name. I know I'll get 50 people saying, oh, no, you say it this way. Hey, I don't care what you think. I say it my way. Church members were assembling in that area. They heard of the disappearance of Elaine, and the congregation decided, we're not going to have a church session. We're all going to leave, and we're going to start searching for this girl. And they all left, and they all went to the area where Elaine lived. Other searchers came from the Bangham district, and the searchers were focusing on the area right around her home, which is a smart thing. They were out there calling her name, doing what you should be doing. There were unconfirmed rumors on a very small number of articles that Elaine was seen that first day and ran away from searchers. Unconfirmed. As the day went on, the search groups got larger and larger as the word got out into the community. Those search groups that first day, afternoon, evening, stayed up until late in the night, calling her name, screaming her name. They didn't get anything in return, hadn't heard anything. I gotta say, this is one of the few times where a child had disappeared and an animal, like a dog, wasn't with her. In fact, there was no mention of a dog on the property, which is odd. The other oddity about this case is that there was almost nothing stated about the parents, which I did think was odd. Didn't say what they did. It didn't say about their feelings. It didn't say about them participating in the search. It was like nothing about them. But that's okay. It's a story about her. The next morning, November 5th, 300 citizens from the area arrived at the Long residence, along with 40 people on horseback. And just as the search and rescue was starting, heavy rains hit the search area. It specifically stated this in numerous articles, and everyone had to stop searching because the rains were so hard. After the rains subsided, there was a private airplane that came and flew the skies looking for her. Also, a man named Alf Ryan, pretty famous Aboriginal tracker from Glenroy, arrived. An article said that the rains made Alf's job more difficult. Alf was known as a super high professional tracker employed by the police. Now, late in the afternoon, after the rain subsided, tracks believed to be Elaine's were found weaving their way through the scrub on the outskirts of the property. Searchers and the trackers worked late into the night, finding nothing. Now, rain is a double-edged sword when you're tracking. It hurts when you're trying to find the beginning of those tracks where they started, because if the rain is hard enough, it'll just wash them away. In another instance, if it rains real hard and the person's still upright and moving, it makes it a lot easier to track them in the mud. Next day, Tuesday, November 6th. Search groups got much, much larger, doubled in size. Trucks arrived carrying people from the outskirts of the community. Horsemen from the area continued to arrive on horseback, and searchers' wives arrived with food from local businesses to feed the searchers. I've repeatedly heard this on searches about the community coming together, knowing they got to keep the searchers in the field. The way you do that is you got to feed them. Now, on that Tuesday, November 6th, border town, nearly every business in the city closed. An article said this to allow the locals to assist in the search. They described the town as one of the quietest Tuesdays in the history of border town. Everybody was gone, working that area around Elaine's residence. That is a community coming together. Word had also gotten out to Adelaide and Melbourne, and the searchers were arriving at great distance. The police had known about this, and they were getting their resources together, and they were arriving as well. They arrived later that day on Tuesday. Now, I want you to understand something. You're in a rural outback area of Australia. Search and rescue didn't have any trained professionals at that point. There was really no training going on then in 1945 in Australia. So they didn't know recommended techniques, distances for a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, and parameters that they'd use. The citizens looked to the police officers as the only figures that people thought might know what to do. And the police officers knew they really didn't know, but they knew somebody who would know, and that's the Aboriginal tracker. On a side note, it was interesting to me, the more I learned about search and rescue between Australia and the United States, that the best trackers were Aboriginal and Native Americans back in the days. And it was those people that lived off the land, that knew the land, that really helped save a lot of people over the years. Now, since I've been doing this, I've got to say that I've had a lot of comments and a lot of emails from people from Australia saying, Dave, you're 100% right. The Aboriginal trackers are amazing. They could see things that you and I would never see. Exactly. So, again, we're still on Tuesday, November 6th. A mounted constable named Rogers arrived from Wellesley, and he brought with him, the day before he was gathering them, he brought with him bushmen who he was going to direct in the search. Now, the area outside of Elaine's home was described as scrub bushes. Extremely thick, very close together. There were no wide gaps. So when you walk through them, if you weren't wearing long pants, you were going to get scraped up. And it was hard to see the tracks because the bushes were so close together. Searchers went out, and they were organized by the police. And granted, it probably wasn't the most effective job as it would be today, but they were doing their best. But the trackers were working on their own, and they were weaving an unusual path through the scrub following what they believed to be Elaine. And the searchers stayed on the job and slept on the job out in the bush at night for days. Tracks had been found intermittently, and they were going to stay on it. And they were still being found. Wednesday, November 7th. Police inspector, and that's like a detective, a man named G.E. McDonald, came from Mount Gambler to initiate an investigation into the disappearance and to oversee the search. So now you have somebody with a little more experience, and he's really looking into what happened here. Two people, MC Rogers and T. Kearns, were police officers that were on the scene the last 2 days. They were supervising the searchers, which numbered over 1,000. Most of these searchers have been on it for a day and a half, fed by locals, fed by the wives. They came from Victoria, Broughton, Yannick, Mountain Gambler, and Keith. The weather had been cooperating, and there had not been any more rain, which was good. The police told the community that they were going to try 2 new tools that they'd never tried before. One of them was a loudspeaker system mounted on a car that would communicate at great distance with other searchers. Hey, we need you guys to move west, east, north, south, stay in a straight line, blah, blah, blah. They'd never had that before. And they had brought a specially designed desert buggy. They had 2 of them that were never seen. Essentially, it was a Jeep made to be in the desert. And it made it easier for them to maneuver through the terrain, of course. Searchers on Wednesday, they were assigned to be in a straight line, 400 of them, 10 feet apart. And they were going to march through the scrub, staying in that straight line to make sure that they didn't miss Elaine if she was laying on the ground somewhere, because she wasn't responding to their calls and they didn't know why. And the searchers believed that she was still missing based on her tracks. 6 p.m. Wednesday. She disappeared Sunday at 9:15. Searcher on his own was looking at a tree 8 miles from Elaine's residence. He's looking at this tree at distance, and he thinks he sees somebody leaning against it, but he's not sure. And he's on his own, but he's near some Aboriginal trackers that are working in the scrub. He, on his own, takes off and starts walking towards this tree, and somebody gets up and starts walking towards him. As they get closer, he can see it's a young girl. And he's stunned, because she's walking normal. He gets up and he's still walking, and Elaine walks up to him, and her first words are, "I want my mommy." She then engages the searcher and said that she hasn't eaten in days and was extremely thirsty. Now, there was a tracker in the area, but it was the searcher on his own that found the girl. He yells, the other trackers hear him, run over, and they yell until they get a truck to come over and help them transport her. She was given water by the searchers. Now listen to this. She was described as having very light scratches on her legs, blistered feet, She was wearing a green skirt and a green blouse that was slightly torn. How come her legs aren't more scratched up? Which was the point of saying that she only had slight scratches on her legs. That's a real question right there, friends. Elaine was transported to Bordertown and was seen by a local physician named W.H. Collins. He described her as aware, tired, but bright and happy. She was given a piece of bread and milk. And the decision made by the physician was that she was going to be hospitalized. The hospital later stated when she arrived, she asked for ice cream. I want you to understand this. I did an AI search just for accuracy, and I also checked some websites as well. They said the same thing. Here's the quote. A 5-year-old can typically survive without water for about 3 days. But dehydration can occur much sooner, especially if they are active or they're in a hot environment. It's imperative the child stay hydrated to avoid serious health risks. Article stated that Elaine had to have had water and found puddles when it rained that first day. She was never sedentary per the trackers. And the trackers stated she covered many, many miles every day. So, I've got a few questions, but we're not done. Police officers and the inspector recommended that the trackers get medals for what they did. They never left the trail. They stayed out there in the bush, constantly looking, committed to their job. Hopefully they got a medal. Because they got the one searcher that found her. They got him within 100 yards of her. Now a tracker is staying on the track. He doesn't wander, whereas the searcher was wandering. Tracker stays on the track and never wants to lose that track. And it's like kind of like a turtle. Slowly make your way. You'll get there eventually, but you don't want to lose the path that the person was on. That's the key point. Searchers were stunned that Elaine could get up from that tree and walk over to the searcher. There was an article on November 9th, 1945, in the Bordertown Chronicle. It said the tracks of the little girl indicated that she traveled approximately 50 miles from the time she was lost until found in thick scrub 8 miles west of Bell's Hut, from where she strayed shortly after 9 a.m. on Sunday. 50 miles. That's equal to the most distance anybody's ever covered that I've ever recorded at 5 years old. 5 years old. So she was gone. Let me work this out for you. She was missing for 77 hours. She traveled 50 miles. As I have told you before, and I'm being truthful, Survivor Man Les Stroud told me. He said, hey, when kids are missing, they don't walk in the dark. They're afraid of the dark. And they're taught, when it's dark, you go to sleep. Kids lay down and they go to sleep. So Elaine slept, let's just say 8 hours a night. So she's gone a total of 77 hours. She's missing for 3 nights, 24 hours. So 77 minus 24 equals 53 hours of daylight that I'm going to give her that she was up and moving. So that means she was traveling slightly less than 1 mile every hour through the scrub oak. Unbelievable. Because again, that scrub oak isn't just like walking on a trail. It's slowing you down. It's thick. But what I don't get is why didn't she have scratches all over her body? I don't get that. Now, a search and rescue manual says a child 4 to 6 years old will be found 95% of the time in 4.1 miles or less from the point that they were last seen. She's 8 miles away and traveled 50 miles. How long will a 4 to 6 year old stay mobile? Search and rescue manual says 95% will stay mobile for 16 hours and then that's it. Well, she blew that right out of the water. Only 1% of the kids in that search and rescue manual study were ever found in the bush. The manual says survivability by a 4 to 6 year old after going missing after 48 hours, 0%. How did she do it? How did she do it? This is a phenomenal feat for anybody to travel 50 miles in 4 days. So this is a picture of Elaine. She's at the hospital with a nurse. I want you to look really carefully at her eyes. See those buggy, wide open eyes that she has? For people that have watched me before give presentations, that is the exact look the kids have after they disappear. It's almost like a deer in the headlights look. Now, she was hospitalized for over 2 weeks. And I'm sorry that this picture isn't real good, but it's the only one I could find. It's a picture of her the day she was released from the hospital going to her grandparents. Phenomenal feat? Yeah. Believable? It's believable because there were so many police officers and trackers involved. Phenomenal. It's a good story because the girl survived and we're talking about it 80 years later. I greatly appreciate you being here. Please put this on your social media, share it. You are greatly appreciated. Remember, this is the time to be kind, the kindness revolution. It costs you nothing to be. Be safe, be kind, and I hope you have a great week. Huck and Paulides out.